Hi, so I normally don't upload this kind of stuff. This is very out of context on my channel, but I'm uploading this video because unfortunately my great-granduncle passed away last night, and recently I interviewed him for a school project, so this is what this video was about.
You can want some little diatribes of what we did.
I'm screen recording.
What we did when we were there, I don't know. We were a construction battalion, and we built things, and, like harbors and that sort of thing. We did have some contact with the natives, and I loved them very much. I didn't smoke. I've never smoked. But in what are known as K rations, which was the food that was pre-packed and given to us, they always had 4 cigarettes. And so I used to trade my cigarettes for candy because they always had 2 pieces of candy. And so in dealing with the native children, I always had great fun in giving them candy, and I had many of them were very, very good friends. Might be of some interest for you to know that following the armistice and the signing of the armistice, I stayed on in the Army of Occupation, and at that point we built a laundry, and we hired many of the natives to come in, and there was one little girl that I particularly fell in love with, Yoshika, and she was a bright little girl, 12 years old, and so when I was coming home, she said, "Me go too." I said, "No, I can't take you. I couldn't even get you on the ship." I said, she says, "Oh yes, in sack over shoulder," because she really wanted to come. But anyway, we think we traced her to that, and I think that the person we traced to sounded like her, had married an American sailor and come to the United States. And interestingly enough, was about 100 to 200 miles from my home. And she was that close, and I would love to have seen her. But now she's expired and has been buried in the Army cemetery in Washington, D.C., because her husband was a military person. Whatever you think of, for your information, following the war, I finally got home in January of '46, and we went to school and got my degree, and then I went to work for a company known as the Southern California Gas Company, and went through the chairs and become an executive officer for them as time went on. I was in the middle of, maybe you've heard the smog problem we used to have in Los Angeles. It was eye irritation and reduced visibility, and you get it throughout the world now. But the eyes just stung, and they ripped a lot, just wiped off. I used to say that Angelinos had the cleanest eyeballs in the world because they cheered all the time. But anyway, I was deeply involved in the abatement of smog, and got some recognition for it. One of the things that you might be interested in was we now run our vehicles on natural gas, to some degree. At least our buses are all running on natural gas, and I invented that in 1966. And we invented it, got the original patent and one thing and another. Beyond that, I don't know what your young people might be interested in. I'm now 90. I'm in my 98th year, and I like to say I'm in training to become a centurion. You see, a centurion is a person that's 100 years old.
Yeah.
And so I'm training to become a 100-year-old. My home, we're rebuilding an awful lot of it now. It's lovely, and I enjoy it very much. I particularly enjoy growing things. I spent a large part of this day and talking with people about some orchids and growing some orchids. You're quite familiar with orchids, of course, and they're just a beautiful flower, and I love them. And so I'm going to get involved in that, and just for the fun of it. So anyway, I don't know what else you want there.
Well, basically, okay, wait, let me explain to you a little bit about what I'm trying to get out of this, I guess. So basically, this is for my English class, and our unit is on unsung heroes, which is basically like heroes that aren't very big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you have some specific questions?
I do, but I don't have all of them yet, so I need to prepare a little bit more. And basically, I'm gonna be writing an article about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand this is an English class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, would you like to set a time sometime to interview? Do the actual interview?
Right.
I'm sorry, dear. I missed that last statement.
What?
I say I missed your last statement.
Would you like to set a time to do the actual interview?
Yeah, so yes, we can talk away.
Yeah, do you understand that?
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Do you understand that?
What's that, Reine? Here.
Listen to this thing. Yeah.
Would you like to set a time to do the actual interview?
Oh, that's up to you, dear.
Okay.
What's convenient for you?
Well, it'd be easier for me to do it either tomorrow or later, probably tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow around this time.
Right. Yeah. So we were told, Aram, to tomorrow at 4:00 our time would be somewhere about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning your time.
Okay.
So you want to do it about 10 o'clock your time?
What?
Okay. So about 10 o'clock. Right now, I suspect your time right there is what, 9:30, 10:30?
It's like 10:30.
Like 10. So you guys are 16 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So tomorrow at 4:00 here would be roughly 8:30 there in the morning.
Okay.
Is that too early for you?
I'm fine with whatever time you guys are okay with. So. 8:30.
Okay, so we can do. Okay, so 5 o'clock tomorrow would be 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock in the morning there. That'd be better.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because I don't live with Rainey. But I'm here every day with him.
Yeah.
But I don't. So that's why I'm just kind of working it out for my schedule too.
Okay.
So my schedule, I could rearrange it so I can be as late as one. But yeah, if you know time, it'd be easier for me to. If I know now what time would be a good time for you, then I can go ahead and rearrange my schedule so that I'm here just to make sure everything goes by smoothly as far as the computer, the Skype goes.
Okay, well, I'm free all day tomorrow, so
Okay.
I'll just
Okay.
work around your schedule.
Okay. So we'll plan about 9 o'clock in the morning your time.
9 o'clock in the morning, my time. Okay, cool. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll have all the questions and everything done, so we can just roll through them.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah. No, it's all up to you. It's for you. And I'm quite honored by your wanting to talk to me about it.
Aaron, you're awesome. Your music is awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you see a Robert Brooks on there, I give you a thumbs up. Well, that's me. I'm Raine's friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say that Bob is my son by choice. He's around and he helps me a great deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he'll be here.
Yeah.
We'll help you.
Okay.
You keep around. Where's your family?
Where's my family? Well, my mom is here. Come here.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hi, Mom.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah. Where's
James and Saya?
Well,
Yeah.
they're at school. Because they're at school.
School.
Oh.
James
She's-
is working, and Saya is went to school today with James.
Are they cutting you down because of the epidemic scares? Or you're having it? Yeah, I haven't been outside of my home for 2 months.
Oh.
The same here too, but much better than U.S. But still, we are very being careful.
Yeah, better than the alternative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Good,
Okay.
thank
Well,
you so
anyway, we'll look
much.
forward to it. I had to get rid of mine. I'm looking. You just lost it. I fell in love.
Ducci.
Yeah. I just fell in love with your dog.
Yeah.
He's a cutie pie.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Oh,
Anyway, we'll talk with you in the tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
You're looking
Tomorrow.
great, both of you. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
There's Aaron Raine.
Hi, little lady.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? Huh?
Puppy's name.
Oh, Ducci. Oh, hi.
Is she?
Ducci.
No.
D-O.
Hey, good. I was thinking about this, and you wanted to ask some questions. I have a suggestion, and unless you have some questions specifically that we can respond to, or I could just ever so briefly run you through my. I'm gonna put that arrow out of your nose. But anyway, maybe take 30 minutes or so and give you a sequence of my life.
Okay.
You could interrupt me at any time and respond to questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
the first question is, generally speaking, what was your childhood like? Where and when were you born? What was it like back then?
Well, I would cover that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Raine.
You.
Yeah. Let me just have. So Aaron wants to ask you the questions, and then you just answer the questions. That's what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You go ahead and.
So,
Yeah.
can you just talk a little bit about like your childhood and what it was like back then?
Your childhood, Raine.
Well, yes, I was born in 1922, and in Missoula, Montana, and I'm the last of 7 children. And my father and mother. My father had homesteaded in Montana. Prior to my, about 12 years prior to my arrival on the scene, the winters in Montana were just too much. They didn't like them. And so they decided that they would move to California, the land of milk and honey, and raise their children. Pop came and he went to Long Beach and discovered Long Beach and sent for his family. And if you can imagine my grandmother, they having 7 kids, having to sell a house, and getting the kids all on the train to get them to California. But anyway, it worked out. They arrived. And so we started living in California in 1923 when I was 10 months old. We initially, when we arrived, we lived in a tent. And my father had built a tent with 7 kids, as you might appreciate. I remember my childhood as being a happy child. My sisters and brothers, my older sister, the brother just older than myself was 5 years older. And then one of the daughters was 7 years older. And your great grandmother was 9 years older than me. And I have to include her because she took care of me. She was my mother. And she was my mother to the day of her passing, because she was the one who saw to it that my clothes were clean and my, I'm off to school on time. But anyway, progressed from there. I went to local schools in the Long Beach area. One of the things, my father built our home, and of course had a mortgage on it. The middle of the Depression. Now you're 13 or 14?
13.
I'm 13.
13?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was 13, we were in the middle of the Depression. And I'm not going to waste too much time on that, but that was a really tough time. We missed meals. We went to school barefooted. There was just no money. And dinner on occasion was nothing more than an orange. And because we had an orange tree in the backyard, what it boiled down to. So anyway, we got through the Depression, and I used to mow lawns for a penny, just to try and put some food on the table. So anyway, we continued going, and we finally come out of the Depression, and I took a job at the airport for flying time, and I learned to fly. And I soloed when I was 15 years old. And I continued and always had a love of soloing. But anyway, I was a good student. Being a student was not difficult for only at home. I went to high school, and then in 1938, playing football, in high school, I broke my arm. And at that time, the winds of war were dominant. There was no question that there was going to be a war in Europe, and we were going to be involved either in Europe or the Orient. And so I decided then that I would not play any more football because I wanted to be physically capable for when I went into the military. And so I graduated in 1941, the winter of 41. And as you may recall, December 11th of 41 was the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And by that time, I was working. I joined the Navy Seabees. Oh, I should say that I had elevated myself through application, and I was promoted to a journeyman pipe fitter. That has some significance. So anyway, I joined the Navy and the Navy Seabees, and after training, we went up to Pearl Harbor and Alaska and the Aleutians. Now, if for you visualize Alaska, and then Alaska had a chain of islands. They came off of the boot in the south westerly direction, and there is Dutch Harbor and Adak. I was there for 16 months. We came back, and I did well. I received promotions on a regular basis. So we came back to California and a little more training, and then we went on to this was a 36th Special Battalion. We went on to Okinawa, and we were among the first troop to invade Okinawa. The primary troop is there on April the 1st, and we got there on the 17th. And we did battle. I'll not bore you with that, but I met some really funny people. Okinawans, I truly did, because after the war, which is over in August, they caused me to stay on Okinawa as the occupation army, and so we built laundry and had a good time. I think I told you when it was time, a little Loshika was a little 12-year-old girl, and she was my sweetheart. So when I told her that I would be going home, she said, "Me too." No, you can't go. Yes, me too. I said, "I can't even get you on the ship. In sack, over shoulder." So anyway, came on home. And I had made up my mind that when I got home, I was going to college.
Wait, hold on.
And so,
Hold on.
You want?
What the heck? Hold on. Hold on. There we go. Sorry. My phone was being annoying.
Okay.
Continue.
So anyway, I went on to college. The first 2 years, I decided that I was going to try and become an engineer, which was my first love. And again, I kept a good grade point as a result of my interest. In 1948, I married Dorothy, and I had her for 68 years. But anyway, at that time, I realized I was going to have a family. And so I wanted to get into something that I could get a job on. So I traded my interest into a teaching credential, which I have. I taught for one semester. That was not for me. I love the children. We got along fine. He did exceedingly well. But the management of the school district was just impossible for me to accept. And so I went in and I took a job with the Southern California Gas Company, which is a utility. And worked myself up through several promotions until I reached the executive level.
Okay, I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna move you to my desk because my computer is overheating from being on the bed. So I am going to just move to my desk. Oh, by the way, here's James.
Hi, Rainey. How are you?
Oh, hi, Guy. You looking good.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, what's going your hair?
Yeah. Yeah, I still got some.
Okay, Guy.
Oh, okay.
Get my camera off.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do some stuff out here?
Yeah, my computer's overheating.
Oh, your computer. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't become a problem.
Turn off the.
Okay, yeah, you can continue.
Yeah. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, well, anyway, I went to work in a utility, and before I knew it, I found a home. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed what I was doing and everything else, and I got some good promotions, and I finally reached the executive level. I finally got a department of my own, and one thing and another served on. My interest became smog. I don't know if you know about smog, but it is a photochemical reaction between reactive hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
And
we call it yellow dust here. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and oxides of nitrogen in your eyes just tear something fierce, and there's a reduced visibility. And so I went as interested as an engineer in that activity and try to abate these emissions of undesirable contaminants, and worked very hard at it, and served on a number of boards and committees, and we've had some measure of success. And I went to work for them in 1951, and the really, we call them the dark years of air pollution, were 1956 and 57 in Los Angeles. And I'll not get into the politics, but we ran and had a number of abatement activities, and in 1967, it was apparent that the automobile industry, including Kia, was doing a noble work in trying to get the emissions from motor vehicles reduced, but it was going to take a new engine design. And so at that time, you don't go to the shelf and pick up an engine and put it in an automobile if you're trying to get a reduced emissions from it. And so I rationalized that this was going to take some time before we really were on top of the smog problem. And so I looked around and to see what else we could possibly do. And the occurrence occurred to me that I was with a gas company, and natural gas is a clean fuel. We're using it in internal combustion engines, but they couldn't be driven down the street because the stop and the go and one thing and another didn't have the proper carburation. So I spent 2 weekends in my garage playing with that, seeing what we can do. And as I like to say, I proved to myself that I was a gas man and not an automotive engineer. And so I got a consultant, and we went to work on it. And in 1967, we had accomplished what we wanted to do. and that was to convert cars to natural gas, which was a clean fuel, and only for the period until the automotive industry had developed the engines necessary to meet the same levels as we were meeting with natural gas. And so we spent quite a bit of time on that and had a number of experiences. By the way, this is going to be in a book I'm doing, so you'll read about it. But we did very well. And so finally, the use of natural gas for motor vehicle fuel become dominant. And most particularly, we did Disneyland, converted into everything in Disneyland, whatever. But the most dominant, in my view, was the bus industry. And the bus industry used diesel, and it was noisy, and it stunk. People a lot complained on it, and one thing and another. So we started working with the Metropolitan Transit District, and so they didn't have a spark ignited internal combustion engine. That was appropriate. So my staff took two diesel engines, and we converted them to spark ignited engines and put them in the buses, and they performed beautifully, going up and down the street with low emissions, and everybody was happy. Well, I made a mistake at that point. I thought this is going to be just a limited use, but as I drive up behind a bus today and I see it still using natural gas as a motor vehicle fuel, I have to laugh to myself and say, boy, how long can you be, or how wrong could you have been? But anyway, it's developed into a whole industry, is what I'm saying, and I've had some recognition as a result of that, and whatever. Getting back on the scale, things were going well for both Dorothy and I, and we were enjoying life very much. We built our home, and we did a lot of cruising, and we enjoyed that very much until it was about 1973. I got the bug. I was coming up on 55, and I was going to be retiring, and I decided to take early retirement at 55. I wanted to see if there was life after the gas company, and I did. And I got the day after I resigned my position. One of the supervisors, the local people, I called and asked if I wouldn't serve on the Air Quality Management District Board. And it was commendable. Had a lot of recognition and one thing and another. And so I accepted, and I served on that board for 8 years. Again, as far as Dorothy and I were concerned, life just could not have been better. Things were going our way, and whatever. So anyway, from there, I finally resigned from the board and was now able. Didn't have any conflicts of interest, and so I dabbled in the oil industry and did some entrepreneurial things with catalytic reduction and one thing and another. But anyway, we traveled, and Dorothy started to become ill. She had a mini stroke, and affected her riding and one thing and another. And so when we lost her, I went on and did 3 more cruises. the third one being most extensive, Bob Brooks, which I don't know, Box, but anyway, Bob has been God sent. He doesn't live here, and he spends about half his time here looking after me. And so we took him on an 82-day cruise on the Pacific Rim. We did Dutch Harbor, the American. We went to Russia, and we did Japan, and then around into China and Singapore and Shanghai and all of that, down into Indonesia. Went down to Australia and spent time four ports, I think we did. But anyway, down and did the South Pacific, Pago and whatever, and then on back to Honolulu and come home. I know your father knows that. We had talked with him about it and gave him. Do you have a question?
Yeah, hold on. Okay, so I have just like a few questions here that I'm gonna ask. So,
all right.
Next one, what exactly are the CVs and what do they do?
Come at me again.
What exactly are the CBs and what do they do?
Bob?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Come here. He's asking a question. I'm out of the. What is it again?
Okay, I'm here.
So
What's
I
the
was asking, what exactly are the CBs and what do they do?
What exactly are the CBs? What are the CBs and what do they do?
Yep.
It's an interesting question. In 1942, they needed a contingent. The Navy needed a contingent to build bases and one thing and another, going beyond sea duty on a battle wagon. And so they formed the CBs, which construction battalion. We actually used to have a construction battalion emblem on our thing, but that led somebody to say, well, that's a C and a B, and so it retained to CBs, and so that's the origin of the word CBs, and it's spelled SEABEEF. What do? We have assignments. When we were in Dutch Harbor, for example, we built a number of warehouses. The most significant, we built a power station, and that we owned and built a couple of churches, and we were just a construction battalion. And then after we completed that, we went to Okinawa, and my particular responsibility on Okinawa was having potable water. As you might appreciate, when you invade an island, you got to supply your own water because you can't trust the other. But anyway, my responsibility primarily was water purification, and we converted seawater while we were there. And again,
Okay.
All right.
I'll just like put it right here.
There you go. You're recording now. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. You can continue.
No problem. But anyway, the CBs are a construction battalion with a lot of we used to call them the brown shoe Navy. The Navy, this people all wore black shoes, and so they were the brown shoe Navy, and totally involved with Navy things, and in primarily construction and land-based activities. And that's what they are. They still exist today, used for great purposes. And they have a base in Hueneme, which is about 50 miles from here, and they're still very active.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, what is a CB's daily life like?
What was the life like when you were in the Seabees? A daily life, your routine.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it fit my pistol. I applied myself. I was treated with respect, and I received a number of promotions. And I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed building things. I always have, working with my hands, and whatever. So I have to say, of course, there were some moments that we had that we were in jeopardy, as you might appreciate, from enemy fire and undergoing bomb attacks and one thing and another. But generally speaking, I enjoy it, and I still maintain. I wrote a book, and I entitled it "Once a CB, Always a CB."
Okay, hold on. Let me write that down. Once a CB.
Once a CB, always a CB.
Always a.
I have. I might add to that. 2 years ago, I was honored. The city of Santa Barbara has what they call a fiesta every year, and it's been going on since 1926. And so they have a week long of celebrations of fiesta, dancing and whatever. And they always have an annual parade, and the Seabees march in the parade. And I have being a volunteer at La Fiesta, I'm always invited to the barbecue. And following the parade, the city of Santa Barbara puts on a barbecue. And so I have a chance to talk with these little kids and one thing and another and share experiences with them. But about last year, Paul?
Last year, he was in the parade.
Yeah, I was honored by being a guest in the parade, and I think we sent you a picture. I was traveling in a mobile.
Yeah. I think I have a photo of it.
That's fat old me. Anyway, I thought it would be of some interest to you. But that's who the CBs are, and they're very warm to my heart. I admire them very much, and I always expression. We had an expression when we were in the CBs that the difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer. And out of that, the words can do develop is related to the CBs. And so I always thank them for keeping up the attitude of and the spirit of can do. But that's my association with them presently.
Okay. So when you joined the CBs, were you drafted or did you voluntarily join?
Oh, voluntary.
Voluntarily?
Oh yeah, no. I am. It was clear in my mind that we were going off to the wars, and when I joined in the mid 1942, the Seabees were very new, by the way, and when I joined, no, they I couldn't wait to be drafted. I had to go, and yeah, good.
Yeah. Let's see. So, do you have any like stories that you like to tell from being with the CBs? Any experiences?
You what?
Okay. Do you have any stories, good experiences that you like to tell, people about? He wasn't supposed to be a CB airman. He's supposed to be a fighter pilot. But because he was colorblind, it disqualified him from being a pilot in the Air Force. Yeah, so that's what his destination was. So he was geared up. In his mind, he was going into the service to become a pilot. He was going to follow in his brother's footsteps.
So anyway,
so CB's he had a high IQ, or he had just the right IQ to fall into this new group because he was the first generation out of CB's.
Yeah, you asked if I'd have any pearls of wisdom. Yes. Enjoy life. Be happy. And I've been blessed. I've been blessed with family. I've been blessed with friends. I always say life just keeps it getting better. Give it a chance. And I think if you follow that, sure. I've said many times that the majority of people who have lived into their 90s have been lucky. By that I mean they were walking one side of the street and the other. They weren't run over, and they had some luck. I feel I've been blessed, and so I say, aging is a blessing if you have the right attitude. That's my message. Yeah. I love you, your sister, and your parents. You're just part of my family, and all of my friends. And I couldn't be more blessed. I live here in a nice neighborhood and a nice home, and I have Bob to look after me. I got my swimming pool. I have a sauna. I have a yard I can play in. I like to grow flowers. What more could I ask? What more can I ask? Yeah.
Okay, well, so the next question is, what was training like for the CBs?
What was training like? What was the training like?
Well, it was atypical of military training. It was physical training, primarily of doing a lot of running and a lot of walking, obviously, climbing over fences, practicing crawling under barbed wire with a gun firing over the top of you. It was military training primarily, That's what I say. I would say it was military training,
Yeah.
and some military training, including behavior as a serviceman. Excuse me, and knowing what the pecking order of the officers were, and yeah, that's what I have to say. And it was excuse me, it was trying. It was no place for sissies. You know, they couldn't keep up, and there was a number of people that did fall out that couldn't. And yeah, okay.
Okay. So after your time with the CBs, what did you do?
After
Like what kind of?
Went over that.
Oh well, yeah. Like what? I guess. What jobs or what did you want to do after your time with the CBs?
Oh, I had two resolves when I went into the CBs. One, that I would not become romantically involved with any one individual. I was going to remain a bachelor until I got my resolve number two, which was I was going to college and give college a try. Yeah, no, those were the two resolves, and I lived by them, and so I didn't. My time in the Navy, we when I was in back in Los Angeles, following the 16 months in the Aleutians, I dated, of course, some little girls that was dating before, but there was nothing. I had the guardrail up. I wasn't about. I was going to go to school. Period. And that's what I did.
Okay, so last time we talked, you talked a little bit about, I forgot the word, for living 100 years. You talked about how you wanted to live for 100 years. I forgot the word for that. So is that your new life goal?
I have no. Yeah, you're speaking to longevity. I want to live as long as I can and have control of my future. The thought of going into a home where you just lay on bed and deteriorate further and further, that doesn't please me at all. So I tell my doctors that when I lose my quality of life, I want to be taken. We have a law in California that if two doctors agree that your demise will be within 6 months, they can sign you off for an assisted suicide. And so they have two doctors. And I keep telling them, bless you guys, don't forget my request. Write me off. I don't want any part of it. No, I will have served my service, I think. And I'm well received I like to say it. I'm only 98, so I like to say I'm a centurion in training and whatever. And if I live to see 100, that's fine. If I don't, that's fine too, because I'm totally satisfied with myself. I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And I am, how could I have more beautiful people, than my own family and all of you. And whatever. Good.
So how did you stay positive during your time with the CBs? Were there any tough times where you...
Bob.
I'll play back, okay? Play back. Okay.
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 How did you stay positive during the tough times?
How did you stay positive when the tough times were when you guys were getting?
Bob Brooks.
Oh, no. I mean,
It was your duty.
Yeah. How'd you get through it, Reine?
What?
How did you get through it mentally? How did you mentally get through it?
No, I had no difficulty at all with my duty. When I signed up with the Seabees or the military, I committed to defending my country. And I'm one of the really few guys that has actually fired a rifle in defense of my country. No, I had no difficulty whatsoever. I knew why I was there, and I acted accordingly. And you don't have to like it, but it was your duty. When you raise your hands and you say, I do, that's solemn to me. So I had no difficulty whatsoever. The mortars, the first night when we went ashore, the Japanese were throwing mortars at us. You know what a mortar is?
No.
And you put a bomb in it.
Oh.
And it shoots off and it comes out and lands. And
oh dear.
I'll just tell you about this. They started the mortar attack as we were going towards a tomb. And they had converted this tomb to a sniper's den, rather. And they were shooting at it. And so they had this mortar attack going. And so they started, and there was a bomb crater there. And I jumped into the bomb crater, and there was a Marine already there. And I commented on the hazard, and he says, "Oh, don't worry about it." He says, "Anytime that you can see the tails on a bomb, the fins on the back of a bomb, you got no problem. But if you can't see them, you got a problem." So anyway, that night, that was mid-morning that we were making that attack, and we were under procedure, and we went into the crater for protection. But we still had the tomb as our destination, and we were not in contact with the officers, but this young Marine, he'd been on a number of invasions, and he looked up over the rim of the bomb one time, and he took a bullet right through his head, and dropped over and dropped dead.
Oh.
I just didn't know his name. That's the sort of thing that you accept. That's why you're there. But you learn from them. And so anyway, after the next morning, we were there all night long, scared to death, as you can imagine, and with the enemy wanting to come and annihilate you, you know. But it was spooky, and well, there were other experiences, but they were all of that ilk. But it was your duty. I've often asked myself, what makes a young man? You don't have to do it in present day war, but we had the LCIs, which was landing craft infantry, and you've seen pictures of the bow go and then the people running off of the vessel. I've often asked myself, what caused us to do that? We were knowing we're going into hostile grounds. They didn't like us, and they were going to be firing at us. But and there was a very real possibility that you would have been shot. What drives a young man to do that? I think it's a sense of duty. I really do. And it was that strong. I hope that answers your question. That's the drive. That's the drive that causes you to contribute as much as you possibly can. A sense of duty. I think you probably run it into it in a team. You might have, you're playing soccer at your school, for example. It's a team spirit, You're going to do your job and play your position well. That's what it boils down to. Sensitivity.
New.
Well, so I know you recently went on a cruise. How did you feel when you visited the places that you used to be?
Yeah, during the cruise, how did you feel when you revisited, like Okinawa? How did you feel when you got there and seeing?
It's an experience, as Bob will attest. When I was on Okinawa, it was 100% military. Excuse me, on Dutch Harbor was 100% military. And when I was there on the cruise, it was a fishing village, something I would have expected. As far as going ashore on Okinawa, there were certain things I wanted to see, but you've gone from a prehistoric people, really. They did not have a single automobile on Okinawa. The only military or automotive equipment we saw were our own and the Japanese. They didn't have automobiles on Okinawa. They had dirt roads. They were living a feudal system. All the men were off to the wars, and so the ladies did the agriculture, and they had at that time a lot of agriculture, rice paddies and one thing and another. And I recall very well potatoes that they had grown. And I went by one of their villages, and they were handing out potatoes to each family on a collective basis. That's pretty primitive. I felt I don't think I felt any remorse. Yes, I had some feelings when I was on Okinawa, and during the conflict, the rumor could come around that little mothers, when jumping over suicide cliff with their babies, because the Japanese had warned them that we ate babies and raped all women. That hurt me. That hurt me. That's hitting below the bone. So anyway, I during the war years, and I was assigned a vehicle and whatever. But anyway, the most stupid thing I've ever done in my life. I say that honestly. I took my truck and I drove behind the lines to see the bodies of these little girls laying on the rocks below. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So, as Bob will attest, when we were on Okinawa, that was one of the things I had to do. I had to go see suicide. I give the Japanese a great deal of credit. They acknowledge that it happened. They don't do any big floral arrangements, or everything else is very suited in my view, and just admitting that it happened satisfied me very much. We went looking for the landing spot where there's so many changes on Okinawa that, it's a megalopolis, and really there is no way of comparing what was and what is a feudal system to today's megalopolis, and busy. And the people were very friendly. So how did I feel about going back? Good. I think I can say good, because now they have picked themselves up by their own bootstraps and have become a part of total society. I think I'm pleased with the way they've developed. And of course, Dutch Harbor was just a military fishing village, and that was a total 100% change as far as I'm concerned. But I guess I'm satisfied with the visit to Okinawa and Dutch Harbor. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Okay, so we're almost done. We have like 2 questions left. What would you tell today's young CBs?
What would you say something to a young CB? What would be your advice, or what would be your word to them? What would you say to a young CB?
And do it all the time. Keep your nose clean.
Okay. Layman's terms, Rennie.
Yeah, I do it. I do it. You take care of yourself. Do what you tell, and maintain the spirit of can do. I at these barbecues always have the opportunity to talk with them and encourage them. They're so young. They don't even shave yet. God, I love them. I think what I do is the same thing. Just keep your nose clean, follow orders, and you know, and I say keep the spirit of can-do alive. That's my suggestion.
Okay. This is the last question, and this is more of like a family question, I guess. So, can you tell me more about my great-grandma?
Can you tell Erin more about her great grandma?
Oh, honey, your great grandma had a very soft spot in my heart. You have to appreciate that my mother was from a family of 15, and she was the oldest female. She was the second child and the oldest female. And so she effectively raised her brothers and sisters on the farm. And after we got to Long Beach, they used to come and visit us and one thing and another. And so by the time Grandma had 7 more, and I was the last of 7, I never felt deprived. I never felt unwanted. B took over. Your great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
She took over. She was my mother, and she is the one. She is the one that took care of me. Yeah, I'm so proud of B. She had a good life. Her initial life was difficult, and it was in the Depression years, and whatever. But after she married Jack, Estem, who was your grandmother's father, and Terry, their father. She had a good life. She really did. Jack was a very pleasant person, a good provider. I got to know Jack pretty well, and in one case I can recall vividly. Back when I had invented the use of natural gas as a motor vehicle fuel, and I had speaking engagements. It was our policy to share no secrets to anybody. Share everything you know. Things that we were working on that we didn't want other people involved in or getting their nose in. We were very secretive, but generally speaking, what were our intentions for the future, that sort of thing. And so I had a large number of speaking engagements, and there's one particular day I was speaking to a group is known as the Western Gas Association, and Jack was with Lomita Gasoline Company at the time, and so I invited him to come, and so we met there and had dinner together, and there was one person there that Jack had known for many years, and so I think he got a little character. And so anyway, when Jack introduced him to me, or me to him, he jumped up and he kissed me on the cheek. and at that time, men didn't do that sort of thing. And Jack was just appalled. He went home and told Bea about it. She told me later that he said, and she was rather embarrassed that I'd let myself be kissed on the cheek. No, but Jack was a very nice person. He had their home, and he kept that up. He always had a garden. Behind his garage, he grew string beans, and so one time, me and Jack were going on vacation, and they were going to be gone for a couple of weeks. And so Jack said, "Would you come over periodically and with your thumb and cut off all the string beans? Because if you stop them, they don't produce anymore." And so, yeah, I'd go over there every day. About every day, I would get about a number 10 sack. It would be about a foot long and about 9 inches wide and about 18 inches high of string beans. And I'd bring them home and then go out to the neighbors and give them to the neighbors. And so finally some of them said, "No more string beans." Bring it.
Oh dear.
I don't know. He divided. I told Jack afterwards, I said, "Look, you don't ever give me an assignment like that again." But anyway, Jack, I consider Jack my brother. Yeah, I have a fondness for him. And I have a fondness for all of my family. And I'll tell you again, Aram, family and friends is all you have in this world.
Yeah.
Family and friends. Don't tell me anything else. You don't have a family. You don't have friends. You ain't got nothing. And I feel sorry for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have. Oh, you're breaking
Yeah.
up.
No. Yeah. I just want to say to you and your sister, we love you, and I take so much pride in that tape you made for us. Both Bob and I chuckle about that quite frequently. And yeah, hello, young man.
Hey, how you doing? Reine.
Good.
I see all the way.
Hey, what?
Thank you so much for doing this.
And thank you for the bandanas.
Yeah, did you see?
Hello.
She's wearing your bandana that you sent her.
No, I had not noticed that. Well, those were some bandanas I had around the house, and they have kind of a Western motif.
Yep. Well, she often wears bandanas to hold her head back, her hair back, so they're perfect for her. She's got some more colors now.
Yeah, there's one
Buddy.
that looks like it had some verbiage on it from La Fiesta.
Yeah, we saw. Yeah, the girls are using them for hair bands.
That's fine. Yeah, the La Fiesta is the one that I told you about that I get to see the CBs on.
Did she?
You're looking good, my friend.
Oh, thank you, and you too.
Yeah, well, I got excuses. What's your excuse? Yeah. No, Yeah, no, I feel fine.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Well, when she gets this article done for school, we'll send you a copy of it.
Oh, I would appreciate that.
And now that we have your Skype, we'll have to call a little more often.
You both look great. Yeah, I'm not into this. I let Bob handle most of this stuff, and we'll do the same. I had something else I was going to say.
Huh? Something else.
Yeah, good. Okay, Annie.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give your mother a nice hug. For me.
Wait. She's here. She's here.
Okay. Yeah.
Amma, come on. Did she?
Hello.
Thank you. Hug. How's that? I'm going to give you a nice hug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh wait, here, say it.
On your plate. Oh, there she is. How come your shoulder weren't
Because for you.
Yeah. You're 13.
Yeah.
And then this one is
11.
11.
11.
Oh, no, you're not.
She's 10.
No, I'm 11.
11.
Oh, really? Wait, then how come I'm 13? She's 11.
10.
Yeah, she's 10.
I'm 11.
You're 11 Korean age.
Okay, I'm going. Bye. Bye.
Okay. It's been fun.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll make sure to send
Thank
you a
you.
copy after I finish the article.
I look forward to. I'm gonna come steal your dog. Like cutie pie. Yeah, but anyway, be happy.
Okay. All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye. Mwah.
Bye bye.
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 Life just keeps getting better. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right.
Uh-oh, was he going to say something?
No, that's